everyone. Today we have my first YouTube interview. I am going to be interviewing my friend and an amazing nurse, Enyeamaka Ejiofor. She is a registered nurse practicing here in Canada. She moved to Canada in 2013 as a permanent resident, and she came as a registered nurse from Nigeria already. Today she's going to be sharing her journey to going through the process of what it takes to actually become a registered nurse in Canada. So you're going to learn a lot if you're thinking about becoming a nurse, if you're thinking about going into this profession, or even know someone who is a nurse and should know what it takes to become a nurse in Canada. You don't want to miss this. You want to listen to this, and I hope you do learn from it. Thank you so much, Enyeamaka, for joining me today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here to talk about what it's like to be an internationally trained nurse practicing in Canada. I thought this would be a great session for our viewers and followers to learn about this very in-demand profession that a lot of people, sometimes I get lots of people who contact me and they want to change their career, and one of the things they want to do is nursing. And I usually sometimes ask them, do you really want to be a nurse, or you just really want to get into it because you've heard that it's very lucrative and it's also in high demand and things like that. So I'm so happy to have you here with me today, and we're just going to start from the beginning and get our viewers to get to know you, and then we're going to go into talking about what it's been like for you, who has been an internationally trained nurse from Nigeria, to get to practicing here in Canada as a nurse. So thank you so much for joining me today. And the first question that I have today for you is, how did you come to Canada? Did you come as a student, as a permanent resident? What was that path to you to becoming permanent resident and citizen in Canada?
I came as a permanent resident. I was a sponsored child. I was 24 years old, but at the time the PR came, I was a student. And so I still qualified as a dependent child.
That's amazing. That's good to know. Yeah, because most times I think the cutoff age is 22. So
22, yeah. But then there's certain little phrases in there. Exceptions.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes too, depending on when the application started too, because it takes a long time, right, to get it. So that's great. So tell me about your professional experience from Nigeria, because you came from Nigeria to Canada and you were already a nurse in Nigeria. Tell me about your experience.
So I got my bachelor's in nursing from the University of Port Harcourt. I didn't really do too much work after that, just a little here and there, some clinics. I actually spent a couple of months at a clinic just observing things. I knew that I was not going to practice in Nigeria, but then you need some kind of experience, just kind of hospital. It wasn't a hospital, it was a clinic. What the setting is like, see actual patients. I'd done some of that in clinicals. And then I left Nigeria in 2013. I did have to go back in 2014 in March for NYSC. So the bulk of my experience was NYSC.
So that was most of the experience you really had practicing as a nurse. So you went back for NYSC and then you came back. When you came back, what was it like getting into nursing in Canada?
So 2013, the first time I landed, I started to kind of research what it was like getting into the process. And I should mention this, I have an unfair advantage. My mother is a registered nurse. She was practicing in Saskatchewan at the time. So I started to look at what the process would be like. I'd been on the website. Anybody who's trying to be a nurse in Canada knows about the NNAS website. So I've been on the website a couple of times. I created a profile, I'd log in, look around, and log back out. At the time, I was broke, and how much was it cost? I think it was costing about $500 US at the time. I was like, I can't spend this kind of money right now. Anyways, 2013 ended, 2014 came, I went to Nigeria and I came back. And then I decided to take it seriously. At this time now, I had a job. I actually had an income, so I could afford to pay for it. I was working as a care aide or a continuing care assistant. Basically, you're the nurse's aide. It's not nursing. You're taking care of people who are ill. It may be long-term care. I worked in long-term care in a long-term care facility. I also worked in a group home with people who have cognitive delays and things like that. But it paid the bills and I started my application. The application went, I think, in October of 2014. Now, when you pay them, they now give you access to the form that will go with 3 forms. One of them goes to your school, wherever it is that you have told them you went to school. One of those forms to prove, like, did this person actually go to your school? The next form goes to whoever your employer was. If you have any work experience, the second form will go to your employer. Then the third one will go to your licensing body, because if you are a registered nurse, someone must have licensed you, right?
That's right.
So the third one goes there. Now that is where the waiting started for me. If you have ever had anything to do with the Nigerian Public University, you will know that getting them to actually agree that you went to school or applying for a transcript is like, you know, the proverbial camel passing through the eye of the needle.
That's right.
Like that. So it took me till I think July of 2015 for all those forms to finally get completed and sent in. The wait doesn't really start for you. Can't say you're waiting for NNAS when you haven't submitted all your forms, and these things have come directly from them. So in that time, lucky for me, I had a job. I was minding my business. At this time, I had a child, and finally 2015 July, everything was in, and then they started processing it. At the time, NNAS was still quick. I think they had just started up and wait times weren't as crazy as they are now. It took 8 weeks for my report to come back. Only the report came back and they said my education was not comparable to a Saskatchewan registered nurse's education.
Oh, wow.
At the time, I did not know that this is what they tell almost everybody. As long as you did not go to school in Canada, as long as you didn't go to school in the United States or Canada, the curriculum is different. The culture is different. The medical conditions are different and stuff.
That's right.
So it was not comparable.
It wouldn't be comparable, yeah.
It would not be comparable. I think I spent about a day crying and thinking about where next to go. They said they would send my package anyways to the licensing body in Saskatchewan, but just so I know, this is what it is. And so I reached out to somebody else I know who also is an internationally educated nurse. And then she told me something that I will never forget. She told me it was possible to make an application. Just this time, try for LPN. Try to become a licensed practical nurse first, because the road to RN is long and it's tedious. So try for LPN. So I went back and I created a new application. Lucky enough, they had all my education, all my everything that they wanted, they had. So I just had to basically pay them to reassess me. But this time, assess me like I want to become a licensed practical nurse. Licensed practical nurses are nurses. Just the scope is a little different from the registered nursing scope. So I did that. And in another maybe 6 weeks, the report came back and they said, okay, now your education is somewhat comparable to the Canadian licensed practical nursing education. I was like, okay, no problem. I took that and I went to the LPN body in Saskatchewan. And they had a very straightforward process at the time. What they said to me was, tell us where you feel like you have deficiency and we'll see what we can do. And I was honest. Like, I went to school in a university. Our clinicals were in a teaching hospital. IVs were not a nurse's thing. Like, you didn't do IV meds and things like that. I don't think that I ever started an intravenous line in school. So I said, okay, you know what? I don't really do IVs or central lines. And physical assessment, I would need a refresher on, and just those kind of things. And they came back to me and they said, okay, well, in addition to all these things you have said, you need to take a course on ethics and do a practice course for the licensing exam. I said, no problem. And I started. There were 6 of them in all. All of them were online. And that was the most beautiful part of it. Like, I got to live my life while I was going to school. It took, I think, 4 to 5 months, because by June of the next year, I had written the exam and I was a licensed practical nurse.
Just to step back a bit there. So you had 6 courses. Those 6 courses took you 4 to 5 months to complete?
Yeah, they did take me 4 to 5 months to complete, because some of them, you can't register for all of them at the same time. right?
You have to finish
you have to wait. What are you offering at this time? Oh, you can take this and then this. And this one is a prerequisite for this one. So you can't really take them all at the same time. And mind you, when I was doing this thing, my RN application was still ongoing. I was still waiting to hear back from the RN body regarding what my fate was. But I did finish my courses. I got the license and I got a job and I started to work.
You got a job as an LPN?
Yes, I got a job as an LPN, and it was in acute care. I worked on an internal medicine floor. Now, 3 months after I got that job, I finally got to hear back from the registered nursing body in Saskatchewan, and said, okay, so we got this, and we cannot necessarily conclude based on what they say that you don't know anything, Abby. So there's an exam, there's a SEC assessment, so let's do this exam and we'll see where you fall. Basically, come and show us what you know and what you don't know. The exam had 2 parts at the time. There was a written part. Two,
okay.
Yeah, there was the written part, and then there was the practicum aspect of the exam. 2 days. And I did that. You don't have to become an LPN before you become an RN. Nobody wants to suffer, right? But it was to my advantage because most of the things that came on that exam were things that I was doing in my role as an LPN at work on a very normal day. And so the exam came and went, and they decided everybody does nursing in Canada 1 and 2 because they assume you don't know what it's like. And truly, we don't know what it's like. And then a pharmacology class, and then caring for the elderly client. And then I did a practicum. Those ones you have to register for. Some of them are not offered in the spring or in the summer. In summer, school is shut, or in fall, and this and that. The exam was in December of 2016. The report came back in March of 2017. And within the next year, I think, till January, my practicum was supposed to start in January of 2018, but I had a baby. I had a brand newborn. I think I actually did start in January. It was supposed to be in November, but I had a 2-week-old baby. And so I moved it. January, I started practicum and clinical. And by March, I was done. If you start counting from 2014, you say it took me 4 years. But most of this time was 4 years of sitting down and waiting for the bureaucracy to just kind of take its course. Yeah. So, just sitting and waiting and wait list and waiting your turn and waiting for when this will happen and when that will happen. I finished that in March of 2018, and I did the exam in April. And April 2018, I became a registered nurse. Amazing. That's the story. And the good thing is my job kept me just in a different role. Just different role, different scope and things.
That's very, very interesting. And I think what is most interesting about it is that most times people are embarking on this journey without necessarily knowing all of the steps that it's going to take, what to see, and all of that. And I think one of the things that you said that was it's really key to anyone going to a new place in any profession is talk to someone who has worked the journey that you have worked.
Exactly.
Because if you had not spoken to the person you did who said, you know what, try LPN, you would have not probably gotten as quickly to where you wanted to.
Yeah, I would have wasted 1 year waiting for that report, waiting for them to talk to me. And then I would have gone to an exam like a blind man, because if you walk off a plane and you walk into that exam, like, I don't want to be pessimistic, but honestly speaking, I know that what gave me the advantage was the fact that those things, like, imagine never seeing nursing in Nigeria and nursing in Canada are worlds apart.
That was my next question. So talk about it. Just a little bit. I'm sure it's so much, but just like even the first few things you saw and the things that were limiting to you, talk about those, right? So that someone who is a nurse in Nigeria or out in some country knows that when they come here, there's going to be that learning curve. So you talked about the fact that you didn't even do like IV when you were not trained to do that.
Some people do them. Like if you go to a private school in Nigeria, or like my mother, I think she went to a missionary school.
Mm-hmm.
They did everything. Like the nuns ran the hospital, right? So they did everything. It was not like that for us. So it depends on where you go to. But really, the scope is very different. Very, very different. But I'll get to the scope later. It's the fact that the light does not go off here. And everything is by a computer, right?
That's right.
Like your patient's test results are on the computer. Your notes, like your physician notes, sometimes are on the computer. Your consults are on the computer. The first time I saw an infusion pump, I was like, what? Because everything that we did, we gave by gravity. Like if we didn't directly push it into your vein, we hung it in a bag and let it run its course by gravity. Like it was amazing to me, honestly speaking.
Yeah, and I can imagine.
It was quite the experience.
And I was going to say, like in terms of your confidence level, like I really want to drill on that, because I want a lot of people to know that when you come here, don't just sit waiting around to get to that big RN title, but do something, because even your confidence level, like as you were telling the story, I knew what impact being an LPN was going to make into you becoming a registered nurse, because it was going to just be a walk in the park, because you were doing
that. You are allowed to make some certain mistakes. Nobody expects you to know everything as an RN. That's different. But if you're an LPN and you're making some certain mistake, we forgive you. But if you come and you say that, oh, you're the RN and you're a team lead and you're making mistakes. I mean, everybody does make mistakes, but there's some certain things that are, we look at you somehow. I got to make those mistakes because I was starting from the ground up. You have to learn the call bell system and how everything works. And then there's, of course, the Nigerian nurses will tell you that the relationship between Nigerian nurses and Nigerian physicians is a story for another day. We won't get into it so that they don't drag me, but there's, at least where I worked, I had to now learn to collaborate with physicians and learn that, we're not fighting. There's a common goal here. Everybody was respectful. I had to learn to ask for what my patient needed. Yes, because somebody actually cared to listen to what I had to say. Somebody relied on me for, how was her night? But she didn't sleep well. I think maybe she would need this. This is up for reorder. Somebody wanted to hear my input. That was something else that was very different. Like I talk about the scope all the time. There's things that we do here right now that I would never have dreamed of doing. Pulling drains and doing central lines and managing those things and maintaining them. There's not a physician sitting around and waiting on the patient. But sometimes you need to use your own critical thinking. And the roles are outlined, of course, so that you don't step on anybody's toes and you don't necessarily get into trouble. But the scope is way, way, way wider. I'll give you an instance. Everybody learns blood gases and everybody learns lab work and stuff like that. But those things are just things that we glance at school and, you memorize just for the sake of the exam. Exam comes and goes. That's it. Well, here you have a patient, right? And somebody draws the blood work. The doctor is not sitting down and waiting for the blood work to come back. The blood work comes back, you see it first, and you call him and say, this is what it is. So you need to know.
Exactly.
Those are that you need to know. I know that I took a class, God help me and bless my teachers, but I took a class and somebody must have taught me ECGs and things like that. I don't think that I actually saw an ECG strip until I came here. So it's worlds apart. When they tell you that your education is not comparable, it's not meant to be an insult. It is actually not comparable, at least where I went to school. And I went to a university.
No, I totally get it. And when you said you cried, I wondered if you had talked to someone to just tell you, you know what, it's not comparable. Don't cry about it.
Don't cry about it. It doesn't mean you're dumb or you will not get there. It just is what it is. It's not comparable.
So I guess
it's not a reflection on the person.
It's not. And that happens even like in the engineering field sometimes. There's a lot of this various field, medicine, like those very highly regulated fields, most of the times it's probably not. And most people that I've spoken to find that by the time they get into the system, they realize how different it is, because tools and systems and things that they have already trained their entry level employees and graduates to do are things that you would probably work for many years and not even have a chance
and
to
not have
where you've had that experience with. Going through all of this, I think you've kind of chipped it in here and there, but what is something you wish you knew when you were coming about what it would take you to become a nurse in Canada, a registered nurse in Canada?
I wish I'd known how long it would take for forms to get completed and sent in, because honestly, I would have started the legwork in Nigeria. All of this would help me go to this place and beg this woman this thing, and waiting. I wish I had known how long it would take for things to get done, and I might have started like doing some of them by myself when I was in Nigeria.
If there's a new immigrant watching today looking to immigrate, can they actually start the nursing licensing process before even getting here? So let's say someone has their PR application in.
Yes,
already.
Definitely. If you think that you want to pursue the nursing profession when you get here, by all means, don't be a cheapskate like me. Like $500 could have saved me a lot of heartache. If I had only paid that money in 2013, I would have had the forms in hand when I went back to Nigeria for NYSC, and I would have been able to chase people around and hunt people down, do those things. But what ended up happening was I left, and then my poor husband had to be going to Uniport every now and again to talk about forms that he knew nothing about.
It's so much easier if you're there, you're the one pushing it and all of that.
And they know you. I just wish I had known how long
it would take.
I took for granted, but as they say, who no go no.
That's right. It's until you get in here.
Until you do it.
Until you get in here, except you have someone like yourself doing what you're doing now, just giving people that heads up, giving them a good picture of what they can expect is really hard to tell. So I guess that kind of segues into like, what advice would you give that prospective immigrants? Like, in addition to starting early, when they eventually come into Canada, what advice can you give them in terms of where to look for the job, what to do, how to structure themselves, their resumes, present themselves, their career, their experiences, so then they can actually at least get into the field? Because it looks like everybody's going to have to wait to get that license. But what can you advise a new immigrant who's just arrived in the country that really wants to practice nursing?
I would say for the most part, use the resources around you. Find someone who's walked the path that you're walking. Everybody's story is not the same, right? But you might learn one or two things like from somebody else.
That's right.
At least learn from their mistakes. Nobody's going to tell you, oh, this is what this exam was about, because there's strict confidentiality regarding those things. But people can point you in the right direction, or tell you, you know what, don't ever say this type of thing. I said this type of thing and this is what the outcome was. And regarding looking for a job, like until you have that license, nobody wants to hire you as a registered nurse because of litigation. If anything happens,
that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but there are many people, many organizations who hire people with previous nursing experience from out of this country. It will not be only you. Just find a job, start somewhere. So
when you say hire lots of people with prior nursing experience, the first job you had mentioned that you had, which was the care aid job, is that typically an area where nurses would find
lots of immigrant nurses start off care aid.
Okay.
It doesn't matter where. I think the first one I had was a private place. I walked there that day and I handed the man my resume, and he called me back that evening and said, was I willing to start the next day?
Oh, amazing.
And that was it. Well, the pay was not amazing, but it was a start. Considering that everybody wants to see that you have some sort of Canadian experience, that first person who hires you is actually taking a chance on you.
That's right.
It didn't matter that he wasn't paying me that much, but it was a job, and I did.
It was a job, yeah, definitely. And it's always get in there, because from there you might actually do well, and you're also learning.
Because the second job that I got paid a lot more than that.
Exactly.
With benefits and things.
Yeah. So the other thing that people usually would want to know is also like, okay, when you say it wasn't paying well as a care ed job, what was that dollar figure? You can give me a range too. And then the second job as an LPN, what is that salary range? And then what is that salary range as well when you get to become a registered nurse?
So as a care aide, like I said, it depends on where you work. The first person who hired me ran his own place. Okay. I think it was, if I remember correctly, it must have been about $16 an hour. And I mostly worked nights. So he didn't have any premiums, anything, because this was a one-man show. He was the boss of himself. So now, by the time I got my second job as a care aide, it was a bigger organization. They paid $20 an hour with the option of night shift premiums were $2 more. If you work the weekend, you earn $2 more.
Oh, amazing. Per hour. $2 more per hour. That's amazing.
But it was a bigger organization. Now, by the time I became an LPN, I can't really say what the range is, but I know that the start for LPNs in Saskatchewan, I think, was $33 and something. Around $33 anyway.
Okay.
I don't know what the cap is. I don't know what the max is because I didn't stay in the profession for too long to really care.
Yeah.
But that was it. Now, for a registered nurse in Saskatchewan, I think the start is $36.60. I hope I'm right. It's around there.
Around there. Yeah, I think you're right. There. Yeah, ballpark. Yeah,
$36.60, and then you can go up to $48 and whatever, like based on seniority and the hours that you put in.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's good. I mean, it's worth pushing for it all the way to the end.
Yeah, and then of course there are people who have like specialty education who make a little extra because you took the time and you went to that big hard school. But
that's right. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to ask this question because there are a lot of people who nursing was probably not their background but would love to change. They want to switch into the nursing profession. What advice would you give to that person who wants to switch into nursing? Like, are there things that you should be aware of? Like maybe ask yourself to be sure that this is something you want to do and not just that those dollar amounts that we just mentioned that is your only motivation.
First of all, should I itself be true? Ask yourself, do you really, really want to do this? Because believe me, the money sounds glamorous, but there will be days that you go to work and the things that you will see, no amount of money that they pay you will compensate you for that particular day. Nothing. There is no amount of money that will compensate you for the stress, the emotional, the physical, the mental stress of this job. If nurses tell you that, I will forever say that we don't earn enough money. They don't pay me enough for this job, but that's a different.
It is a big job.
It looks like a lot of money, but it's a hard job. This is hard labor, trust me.
Yeah, it is.
So ask yourself. I mean, I've seen people do it. I know somebody whose background was mathematics and she's a registered nurse and she's one of the most fantastic nurses I know. People have backgrounds in chemistry, in the sciences, and whatever, and they make good nurses. But this is because from the depths of your heart, you have committed yourself to doing this. So ask yourself, do you really, really want to do it?
Yeah, and I think that is really important. I remember one time hanging out with you, and you were just talking, and you guys. If I'm in the hospital, I left Enyeamaka that day, and I said, if I'm in the hospital, I just want a nurse that is just as great and who loves her job the way she does.
No, I love my job.
Yeah. So
if
like
you know anything about me, I love my job. I love my job.
Yeah, she does. She does. And she's literally that nurse that you want working with you, being the one taking care of you, because you know that you'll get good care. And it's the same thing I do tell people when they think about, oh, it's nursing. Nursing is the one that I would make the most money when I get there. And I'm like, yeah, there is that. But I think it's really important, like you said, to ensure that you are aware of all of the things that come with nurses and all of those requirements. It's not just a field that you just jump into just because of the money. You actually have to have that deep care and passion and actually love the profession and love to care for people to actually make a good nurse, because I give you guys kudos. Like the 2 times I've been in the hospital to have my baby, I'm just always thanking them. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And they're so nice, just taking care of you because you're in your most fragile state. You can't do so much. And it's just nice to see people just really take care of you. And those are the people you want to be your nurses, not just people who are just like, trying to get into it for.
I think that the being nice and being polite part is part of regulation, because I'm a Nigerian nurse, and Nigerian nurses have a reputation. We're mean. You can't talk anyhow here, you lose your job.
That's right.
You need to be respectful. You learn to be kind and have empathy. Oh, don't get me wrong. There are people that you meet and they will test you to the very limit. And some days you need to put your foot down and you say, you know what, I'm not going to take this. And you don't have to take abuse from anybody. But at the same time, you're not allowed to be abusive to anybody.
Good information there. So one last question. I know that you were practicing in Saskatchewan. You and your family, you have moved to Alberta. What has been the transition for you? How easy was it for you to move from Saskatchewan, being a registered nurse, and continue to be a registered nurse and work in Alberta? Because I do know that in some professions, different provinces have their own regulatory body for all of this. Is it the same with nursing?
Of course, it's the same with nursing. The licensing body in Saskatchewan is very different, very independent from the one in Alberta. Now, the license carried over. Yes, but it was a fresh application.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, it was a fresh application. I needed to apply for a license to practice in Alberta. I did not have to go through the process of getting all my transcripts and things like that, because I already have a Canadian license. So the assumption is that Saskatchewan has done the due diligence. So just give us what you have from Saskatchewan.
Right? Okay.
There was a part where my employer had to write in and say, oh, this person is employed. She has been employed for this long. And the regulatory body in Saskatchewan had to write and say, fill a form and say, oh, this person's been licensed for so long. And these are how many practice hours she has. She speaks English. Important. You must say that you speak English, because English is...
Did you write any English exams in all of the exams you wrote?
Many. Yeah, I did the IELTS a total of 3 times, because it expires every 2 years. So I did it the first time and I passed in flying colors. So the second time when I was going back to write, I took it for granted. Like they say, it's not a test of knowledge. It's not a test of knowledge, but there are specific things that they're looking for. And if you don't study and prepare for that exam, trust me, you will fail, because I failed. The second one, I failed. I failed the written part of it. There's a certain structure that they look for when they ask you to write an essay. Anyways, so now when I failed, I went home and I thought about why I failed. So I picked up a book and I saw why I failed. 2 weeks later, I went back and I did it and I passed. So it's a total of 3 times.
Was it the academic or the general? Because I'm thinking about
the academic.
Okay. Yeah, it's just like with the people, I was asking because if someone has done the general for permanent residents, that would be good if they could just use that, but obviously they have to take it again. So it's what it is. But you didn't have to do all of those exams for Alberta. They just relied on what Saskatchewan had and got you licensed there. What was the processing time for that?
The processing time varies. Now, I found that the squeaky wheel gets oiled. So if you sit down, they tell you, oh, it's going to take a maximum about 10 to 30 business days to do this. And somewhere in the middle, I remember I had to make a couple of calls because I hadn't heard back. If I put in an application and I give you 1 week and I haven't heard back from you, you get a call from me and I'll say, what's up? And then they'll say, oh, there's this amount of a wait time. And I'll say, okay, no problem. Thank you very much. Well, somehow the next day, somebody would have gotten it done.
That's right.
So is there a wait time or is there not? Or is it just because I like to make noise, right? But
no, that's good. That's really nice. So you're practicing now in Alberta as a registered nurse. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Any final words to our viewers, to everyone watching this who is a nurse? Any final words?
You definitely can do this. It sounds like a long, daunting road, but people are doing it and they don't really have 2 heads, as we say. So you can do it. All it would take is time and money, lots of money.
Yes.
But the time will pass anyways. Whether or not you start, the time will pass. So start. Just start.
That's right. Just start.
And talk to people. Ask questions. There are people who are really willing to help you. It may not seem like it, but people are genuinely interested in seeing you succeed.
That's
and
right.
If somebody isn't doing what you want, it's not because they have something against you. There are things that will not go your way, and it's not because it's something personal. It's just it's what it is. If somebody isn't giving you what you want, just don't take it personally. Think about the ways that you can either work around it or try something different, or actually see reason with them. Not everything is personal.
Not everything is personal. Absolutely true. And stick to it. It's like Enyeamaka said, it's a journey. It's not overnight, but you'll get there. Give yourself time, plan it in. Anything you can start doing, what you've picked up from this session today, start doing that, because that, of course, is going to fast track, hopefully, to where you get to be, what you want to be in Canada, that registered nurse as well. So thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate you being so open and sharing your experience. I know that this is going to really help a lot of people who are looking to become registered nurses in Canada, to at least have a glimpse of what they can expect when they are coming. Thank you so much. And of course, I wish you so much greatness and all success in all that you do as well. And to our viewers, if you would like to have some time to speak with her about your upcoming plan to relocate to Canada, Korea, there's going to be a link in our bio where you can get a session with her, and that would at least help you as well once you're ready to start, and then you can get to speak with her. Thank you so much, and I will be talking to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.